For the Strait family, the decision to seek political asylum in Australia was a good one. After facing strict restrictions in Poland, the family has thrived on their new freedoms.
We made the decision to change not really our life, but life of our children. It was most important.
The Strait were two of 27 people who officially became Australian citizens at a City Hall ceremony. They came from 12 different countries and swore an oath of allegiance. After a quick lesson in flag waving, the new Aussies were presented with their citizenship certificates. For 37-year-old Lin Quin Yu, originally from China, it was the start of a new family life, reunited with his brother, sister and mother after years of separation.
Today is the special day. It's a lucky day. I'm very, very happy.
Nine people from the Hunter Valley and Central Coast were among those honoured. Community and business leader Alex Young received an AM. Mr Young has been chairman of the Hunter Development Board for 12 years and is an active supporter of the Salvation Army.
Frankly, it doesn't mean all that much to me personally, except that one's wife and family seem to get something out of these things.
73-year-old Derek Howard of Coal Point received an OAM for service to the community. Mr Howard is a retired police inspector who is active in community and service groups.
I don't think you get very far at all in any community organisation unless you are involved with others.
Deaconess Jean McKinnon of Lemon Tree Passage received an OAM for service to religion. Through the Uniting Church, she is still working to help people, most recently victims of the Newcastle quake.
I couldn't believe it really at first, and I wondered whether I deserved it. And then I thought of family and friends, but particularly the church, because my life has been the church, and that's what's given me the areas that I've worked in, the fields that I've gone into in flood relief work, you name it. And I think, well, for them, it's something more than for me.
Margaret Sevier is active in promoting the visual arts and played a leading role in Maitland's Bicentenary and Steamfest. She says she's always been involved in community affairs.
I must admit that I still am very excited, but I'm probably more aware of the fact that it's not me, it's the other people that I represent with the groups that I'm in, and I'm sure everyone else says that, but it's just so true.
Others honoured in this region were Councillor John Hawley, awarded an OAM for service to local government. He's been president of Dungog Shire for 20 years. Mrs Burkle of Denman for services to the community. Harry Clark, aged 65, who's been an active member of Cooks Hill Surf Lifesaving Club since he was 14. Warrant Officer Roger Payne, honoured for his service to the Australian Army. He's based at Singleton. And Mr Reginald John Bennett of Mangrove Mountain for service to the community.
It seems tension is still running high following the ALP decision last year to withdraw from the task force. Labor MPs John Price and Richard Face went today as observers, sitting in on a session on post-earthquake strategy. But sparks flew when a political adversary questioned their right to contribute to the meeting.
If you're going to come into any meeting as just an observer, then you observe. And to come in and make a mockery of it by coming in as observers and just sitting in the background, I think they should have had a bit more guts.
John Price left shortly after the clash with Ivan Welsh. Once outside, he and political colleague Richard Face rose to the attack.
There was not a great deal of extra information that I gained. There were some confidential matters which were very interesting, and they're the ones that I attempted to speak on. I don't believe my contribution was really appreciated.
And to go in there and cop that off Welsh today, I'm quite appalled, and I quite frankly think that it's, as I said, one of the most disgusting exhibitions I've seen in 17 years.
Despite today's altercation, Richard Face says he'll be back whenever the earthquake is on the task force agenda. Indeed, he wants more frequent meetings confined to the MPs in the worst hit areas. John Price, however, is less enthusiastic about returning.
I'd have to be persuaded fairly strongly after this morning's performance.
Chairperson Virginia Chadwick still holds hopes that all the Labor MPs will return to the fold, dismissing today's altercation as unimportant. Meantime, amid the infighting, the task force called for a more flexible loan scheme for small businesses.
And what we're trying to do is strike an equitable balance. The view of the meeting was in fact that we should try and make our loan system more flexible rather than to have a joint system of grants and loans.
Since the earthquake, the Education Department has had the mammoth task of checking and rechecking 150 schools in the quake zone. More than 60 were damaged by the quake, and over the last few weeks the department has made sure that those buildings considered structurally unsound have been barricaded off and alternative arrangements made. At Plattsburgh Public this morning, parents took one look at the metre-high fence surrounding the main block and demanded their children be taken out of the building. Structural engineers had given the block the all clear, but blockaded the main stairway which had severe plaster cracking. Parents are concerned that should an emergency arise, there are not enough exits.
I don't think any parent can overreact to their children's safety in any way at all, but I think that we were looking for answers, and until the Education Department heard our questions, they weren't able to answer. The parents weren't hysterical in any way, they were just concerned of the safety of their children.
After meeting with parents this morning, the department has promised to supply 2 demountable classrooms by Friday and turn the auditorium into temporary rooms.
And I'm quite accepting of the fact that parents will have some concerns because many people have suffered different ways throughout the earthquake. And we are expecting that there will be some concerns, but I assure people that where we've examined buildings and so on, and they have been marked as quite safe to use, they are safe to use.
Until the building is repaired, which could be well into this year, the main block is out of bounds. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
The Hillsborough-Warners Bay Road roundabout was the scene of congestion as flooding cut several approaches, slowing commuter traffic to a crawl. Some motorists, gamer or less patient than others, chose to forge ahead even as the water rose well over their doors. Dozens of homes along North Creek beside the Esplanade were victims of flash flooding as the torrent edged over the banks, turning streets into streams and giving neighbourhood children new opportunities for improvisation. On King Street, homeowners could do little but watch the waters rise, then wait hopefully for the flood to ebb, but even as nightfall approached, the waters remained depressingly high. Closer to the city, sheets of water lay across many roads, but traffic was rarely brought to a stop, on occasions apparently not even slowed. One exception was a section of King Street where waters breached the banks of stormwater drains. On Derby Street, late afternoon traffic struggled on through the downpour, many drivers obviously unaware of the traffic jams awaiting them south of the city. Businesses were hit at the peak of Friday afternoon trading. Once again, the operators worked on as best they could under difficult circumstances. Many, like this hairdressing shop, had little choice but to continue serving customers. By late afternoon, the downpour had abated, leaving business and homeowners the now familiar task of assessing the damage. Claremont House was bought by the Newcastle Club to meet demands for extra space when the present club building opened in the 20s. Dating back to the 1860s, Claremont House now faces a bleak future. The Newcastle Club posted this notice in the Newcastle Herald yesterday advising that earthquake damage had rendered the building beyond repair. Club Secretary Ian Savage said the club is acting strictly on the advice of experts and it will proceed according to the further advice of Newcastle City Council. The building is recognised by the New South Wales Department of Planning as a building of regional significance. It's understood the club has no intention of proceeding with demolition work until the building has been fully assessed by Council and, if necessary, the National Trust. Meanwhile, demolition work on a lift tower adjoining the Royal Newcastle Hospital's historic York and North Wings has come to a halt as a result of bad weather. Demolishers had planned to cut through a 100-tonne concrete slab at the top of the tower to reduce the danger of collapse.
Almost up to the first level.
Christchurch Cathedral was the venue for an ecumenical service this morning to mark the start of Supreme Court proceedings for 1990. Judges, barristers and solicitors were joined by representatives of community and church groups. Mr Justice Enderby, a former Whitlam Government Attorney-General, will preside over the next 3 weeks of proceedings. In his address, Monsignor Philip Wilson claimed justice was not something injected into society, but came from the hearts of all who participate. But with all the pomp and ceremony comes the reality that huge delays and the increasing costs of legal representation are making justice for all a difficult goal to achieve. More than 90 cases involving personal injury and damages claims will be heard before a jury in this sitting. The Law Society says attempts to settle cases out of court is one way of easing congestion.
We tend to not use the courts as last resort, but as first resort. We issue our processes first and then gather our evidence, and I think people have got used to doing it that way. I think we need to examine why we do it that way.
Would you see independent arbitrators as an answer to that?
Arbitration has worked extraordinarily well in the local courts where it's been introduced throughout New South Wales, and also in the district courts. It's also helping to bring down the delays there. It is part of the answer. It's not the answer, however, but it's one of the many things that we need to improve and develop.
Yesterday, the National Trust released a list of 46 buildings it once included on its register. Although the Trust has no legal power to enforce preservation, it wants the Royal's Northern York wings saved from demolition, along with most of the buildings in the block surrounding the Frederick Ash building. The old Carlton Hotel in Scott Street is also included. Alderman McNaughton came out with guns firing today in response to that list. He claimed the National Trust has nearly sent itself bankrupt and is now intent on sending the council and the people of Newcastle bankrupt.
The National Trust's proposed listing is unfortunate and bizarre in its implications for a city that has just been devastated by an earthquake. We have a main street full of empty shops. The Trust seems to want to make it a street full of derelict buildings.
Newcastle Council is sensitive to the register as it owns many of the buildings now on the list. The move could place in limbo the development of the Civic Centre area, locking out money invested on behalf of ratepayers.
The Trust says that it has no money to repair buildings, but is apparently prepared to push that responsibility onto a city and property owners brought to their knees by an earthquake. Clearly, we need to talk to the Trust, and I certainly will express my views in the strongest possible terms to both the Premier of New South Wales and the directors of the National Trust.
Today's meeting of the Businessmen's Club was significant in many ways. It was the first for the club for 1990 and the day the first woman member was introduced. The past president of the club, Bill Parker, conducted a survey last year and the move was endorsed by a majority of the male-only members. Ms Charlton runs a marketing and business research company. She's worked as an accountant, teacher and now company director.
I think it's a breakthrough. I think it follows worldwide trends towards greater equality between the sexes as well as greater equality between people.
It's a painstakingly slow task. 4 areas of Stockton Beach have been marked for a metre-by-metre survey, 25 square kilometres from Berrubi in the north to the wreck of the Cygna in the south. State-of-the-art detecting equipment, including a digital magnetometer, sends signals down 10 metres into the sand. The information is recorded in a tiny computer, which is then translated into a graph.
We've looked at the hard plot and we found an anomaly here. We might dig it up and have a look at it. It's got the right shape, it's a good intensity, so it's worth investigation.
Using this information, the RAF and Army workers dig into the sand, most of the time finding false alarms such as this fence post. But over the sand dunes at the old air weapons range, 20mm aircraft ammunition has been found, plus rocket motors and missile casings. Major David Thomas says the danger to the public is minimal if they take simple precautions.
Our advice to them is that if they see something that looks in any way suspect, do not touch it, do not attempt to move it, but to contact the civilian police.
The 16-man team hopes to finish the project by June. The rainforest reserve used to look like this. Residents say they've documented 149 plant species including sassafras and fig trees. However, Port Stephens Council approved an application for selective clearing and this is the result.
There is no regeneration, no new shrubs, trees, whatever, left standing. All we got is left the old stuff which is going to die off.
Owner of the blocks adjacent to the reserve, John Taylor, who paid for the clearing work, said he was following council regulations. Mr Taylor said he was opening the area to improve water views, but is still willing to compromise with residents. Last night, protesters marked trees which the developers have agreed to save.
Elton John is the chameleon of the concert stage. The Mozart look was just one of hundreds of outlandish and colourful costumes. But if you're wondering what Elton might be wearing on this Australian tour, here's an exclusive. Elton's latest creation was made by Rundle's Menswear in Newcastle. The jacket was finished this afternoon, just days after the order was placed, and will be sent to Brisbane tomorrow morning. Lindsay Rundle couldn't resist trying on the creation. For those expecting sequins or perhaps lace cuffs, it's a bit of a surprise. The jacket is based on Aboriginal artwork. You might call it Crocodile Dundee meets Crocodile Rock. Rundle's is certainly thrilled to receive the order and not a little shocked.
Yes, it was a great surprise. We're obviously very proud to be involved with this, and I hope it's going to be very successful.
Of course, Elton John's coat is a little different to your regular outfit. Apart from the colour, it has subtle alterations like higher cut armholes for greater movement at the piano keyboard. But there are some secrets that a gentleman's tailor cannot divulge.
You must be one of the few people in Australia that knows Elton John's size.
Yes, unfortunately, Tom, it's a tailor's secret, Elton John's size, but he's a little bigger than I am.
The Fiji Visitors Bureau took the limelight at a travel show in Newcastle City Hall, but there were 35 other stands vying for the hunted tourist dollar. With an earthquake and now flooding, are Novocastrians thinking about venturing afar?
Definitely, I certainly do, just to get away from it all for a while.
Japan appear to be a popular destination, even Tasmania. Adventure trips also attracted interest. But how can anyone afford a holiday in these days of high interest rates?
I can dream about it, I suppose.
Possibly a lucky ticket for a free trip might help that wish come true. Insurance was available, which one stallholder could have done with after a minor mishap, a scene all too familiar for earthquake-stricken locals. Jays hope to attract a record 3,000 plus crowd to the travel show, which finishes tonight.
Merv Hughes is parting with some of his whiskers in the hope others will part with cash to help earthquake victims. Elle Macpherson has donated a swimsuit, while Tom Jones fans can bid for a rather large pair of ladies' underwear autographed by the man himself. Political pundits might fancy Bob Hawke's cufflinks, history buffs a piece of the Berlin Wall. Recognise the shirt? Well, Paul Hogan would. Crocodile Dundee climbed his way to international fame and fortune in this very outfit. If you've always longed for a Queen of Pop crown, this one from Colleen Hewitt could be yours. Ivan Lendl has given his shorts the Knights an autographed footy jumper, while Olivia Newton-John has donated her koala blue nightshirt. All items will be up for auction, including this rather dashing get-up modelled today by the show's compere.
This outfit is Jade Hurley's shirt, which I think he must have been a little thinner when he had it originally, and it's of course Pee-wee's coat from his suit. The pants go with it, but I think I'll probably have to bid for this myself, because anybody that gets this tonight at the auction, if you hung it in your wardrobe, all the other clothes would leave.